Happy day, sisters. Welcome to Come Sis With Me, the podcast, a movement fueled by the heart of women with a desire to experience genuine community that uplifts, empowers, and strengthens one another on one common hood, sisterhood. I'm your host, Mia, relationship counselor, coach, minister, and your sisterhood connoisseur. Join me as we walk through my honest conversations on all things sisterhood, womanhood, and whatever other hood comes up, with a goal of knowing that through it all, you got this, sis. Welcome back to Come Sis With Me, the podcast. I have an important topic to discuss with us today. We are in the Womanhood series. Today, we are talking about being a woman of balance. And being a woman comes with different roles and responsibilities. It's important to find balance in your life so that we don't become overwhelmed. But what does that actually look like in our womanhood? What does that look like in our lives as busy, multifaceted women? It can mean living a life where you have time for yourself, your family, and all the things that you wish to pursue. But it could also mean a lot of different things, depending on what your commitments are and what those challenges look like. But what I do know is that it's all doable and that living a balanced life as a woman is possible. And the reason I know this is because my guest today actually exudes this in her life. It's the reason why I chose her to be a guest on this topic, because when I look at her, when I think about her, when I even think about overall life and balancing in my own world, this is the sister that I typically turn to and see as a leader in ministry, one who is able to navigate the marketplace with success, because she sits as a C-suite exec. She's one of the best moms that I've ever met, and she's an amazing wife. And so when I think about a woman, I know balance is a buzzword in these streets, but when I think about someone who is able to distribute the weight of marriage, family, and work, it's in ministry, because she's also a visionary who's led a very successful women's ministry for 10 plus years. Okay. So when I think about this, in conjunction with still living that out as a covenant woman, having a covenant with God and balancing life, I think about Chante Truscott. So I want to welcome my guest today to the podcast. Chante, welcome to Come Sis With Me. Would you tell the people a little bit about who you are and how you would introduce yourself? Welcome.
Well, first of all, I feel like I've been wanting to get here, right? Like this is the spot to be, right? Come sit with me. So thanks for having me, first of all. But if I was to introduce myself, I would ditto a lot of what you shared. A wife, a mom, God's daughter. I'm a daughter as well. I carry a bunch of leadership roles at work and at church and co-lead my home with my husband. But I think just overall, just someone who I actually like really thrive in all those environments. So I love this topic. I love being able to talk about this in a way that really honors the Lord and is not part of like this hustle culture, but just to be able to help our sisters navigate every aspect of their lives. So thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, of course. First person I thought about when I was like, ooh, Womanhood series. I definitely want to talk about balancing life and all of the different areas that assignments, positions that we have as women or can have as women. And of course, I thought about you because look, you're already giving me words that I think we need to include in the podcast. Hustle culture is now on my podcast list of topics that we're going to put in here. But when you think about balance, and when you talk about balance in terms of your life, how would you define it? Like, I know how Webster defines balance. So how does Chante define balance?
Well, sometimes when I hear this word, I'm like, what is that? what's balance. But I really think about it
Exactly.
more from the aspect of like synergy. Because when I think about balance, I think about
Mm,
like thinking about all the things that we're responsible for. And I think about like the cartoon where they have like the plates and both of the hands, and then they have their leg up, and then they have a plate on that, and then they have a teacup on top of that, and then they have a plate on top of that, then they have a fork on top of that, and they have a spoon, and that sounds overwhelming. So I really like to think about
yeah.
balance in synergy together, where it's like a mutual coming
Mm,
together of the things that I'm responsible for. So I don't feel overwhelmed when I hear like balance. And I'm clumsy too. So when I hear the word balance, I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Make sure I don't drop all of that stuff. I think more
that's not
about
me.
synergy, about kind of bringing all those pieces together in a way that honors each one of them, and really being mindful of like
Yeah.
different things in different seasons require different parts of who I am. So being able to like lean into those from a synergistic
Mm,
standpoint, in my life, right? Because sometimes, like my husband coaches basketball, so during basketball season, I'm like cheerleader wife, and not just traditional wife. And then at
mm,
work, like we have really busy seasons at work, and then my daughter is well, our daughters are have different things going on, so they require different things. But to be able to build synergy is what really
yeah.
creates the balance in my life, I would say.
Yeah. That's good. Synergy is not even a word that's used in the definition, but I'm going to give you the definition because you know I like definitions. But it does talk about an even distribution of weight, and that it enables someone or something to remain upright and steady. So you can think about like synonyms are stability, equilibrium, steadiness, footing. And that's exactly what you just explained. That any instability does not equate to balance for you. Like
Right,
it's not
right,
about everything being leveled, but it's really about like keeping things in tension and tandem with one another. Another
yeah, yeah,
definition was a condition in which different elements are equal or in the correct proportions. And you actually
yes,
just gave like a small little piece of that when you talked about depending on what season you're in life, right? That's what what to emphasize, right? Like if it's basketball
right,
season, being a wife of a basketball coach, I know being a wife of a basketball player is one thing, but being a
yes,
coach is a completely different ball game, and it requires a level of proportions that are different, elements that on what season you're in. So that's actually perfect. It's a perfect segue into kind of why I brought you on, because I think we know as women that there are going to be requirements that we have to balance in life, right? But how to balance them is where we fall short.
okay, so for me, I think it's like an umbrella, basically, that there are certain things that, like, if I'm not strategically like addressing certain things where I need to build balance, then everything under the umbrella is getting wet. So it's like, oh, your umbrella has holes in it, because you didn't balance where you needed to, and then everything underneath got wet because, as I mentioned before, like some things you have to lean into more in different seasons. And so the thing I always have to lean into first, right, is my relationship with the Lord. Because the
Mm-hmm.
minute I don't prioritize that, nothing else is balanced. Like it really is like I'm like a chicken with my head cut off. And I will, when I get out of balance, I have to think about, have you been honoring your relationship with the Lord? Have you been honoring your time with God first? And first doesn't necessarily mean first thing in the morning, because sometimes my life doesn't like add up that way, or it's not set
Mm-hmm.
up that way. But that I am honoring that commitment to God in a way that I need to for the season. Like for
Mm-hmm.
example, before I had my daughter and my husband was still playing basketball overseas, I had like unlimited time with the Lord. I'd be laying out with the Lord for hours, and it was just glorious. And then he retired, right? And we moved back to the States, and I got a job, and it was like, oh, okay, how do I figure this out? And then we moved again, and then we had my daughter, and our
Mm-hmm.
oldest daughter came to live with us. So it was like, okay, how do I set up my relationship with the Lord in a way that makes sense for this season? So I'm not like, okay, don't bother me because I'm with Jesus. Well, I have a newborn, so that probably wasn't going to happen that way. So being able to really adjust. So sometimes that looks like when I sit down at my desk to work, that I have my time of prayer, or that I'm listening to the Bible instead of being able to open it. Or when I'm working out, that instead of listening to ratchet music, I listen to the Bible being read, or worship music, which is hard because I love to listen to ratchet music while
I was
working.
going to say during workouts.
Right. That's how I also keep balance as well. Right. I get that all that out. Okay. The next thing is then my relationship with my husband. Right. Because according to the Bible, like that's the order that we follow. It's God first, then a spouse. And that looks different in different seasons. As I mentioned before, he's a basketball coach. So some of how I pour into my relationship with him is being present at basketball games. Because Lord knows a girl be tired, right? Like I finish working, I go pick my baby up from school. She's tired too, but we're there to support him as a family. Because during basketball season, a lot of times we don't even get date night. And so it's being able to balance like outside of basketball season, right? It's all about us and we can do all these things and do all these things. And during basketball season, it's about supporting him because there's not a lot of free time unless, we're at home and then our little one is in the bed. And the next is as a mother, right? Like being able to, we have a grown child and then we have a 5-year-old and they need different things at this time. And our oldest daughter is also a wife. So being able to really be an example for her of what balance looks like in your career. And then also being present for our little one. Like she is in kindergarten, so she's in grade school. And it's important for us to be there for presentations and for different parties at school because that's important to her. So those are the layers for me that start my umbrella. It's God, my spouse, and my kids. And so then everything else kind of comes under that umbrella because if I don't take care of those things, then everything else under the umbrella is going to be out of whack for me. Ecclesiastes 3 and Ecclesiastes 3, 1 through 11 talks about there's a time and a season for every activity under the sun. And that is really important that we lean into that. Like even the earth shows us that in the different seasons. There's a summer, a winter, a spring, and a fall, and different things happen in those seasons. Like things aren't growing typically in the winter because it's time for the earth to rest and renew. Like animals go and hibernate. And so you have to know the times and seasons in your life, but some things are consistent. And that for me is the umbrella. And then everything else kind of falls under that. Then work comes next, right? Because we have to live and we need to buy food and pay bills and all those things. And then church falls under that because those are leaders. And then I need time with my friends as well and time with our extended family. So it's really being strategic of like, I probably can't go on a girls trip during basketball season because that's how I build balance in my relationship. Or if my daughter has a gymnastics recital, I probably can't go and go on a family vacation or something like that, being mindful of what I have in front of me and what makes sense. We were talking about before we started tonight, like it's spring break next week and I'm going to take time off from work to be on spring break with my daughter. My husband is doing the same thing so that we can really nurture our family so that does not get out of balance with us putting other things before her. So it's systems, I would say, is very, very important, but you have to know what's important to you first before you can really like balance and build that synergy.
Yeah. I have like 15 questions, but I'm going to stay on track here because I heard making obedience to God your number one priority. But I immediately thought about, and I don't know why this came up, but I thought about the word sacrifice and remembering like Saul. Saul when he was sent to conquer the Amalekites in 1 Samuel, and he said like his thought process was, I'm going to go and conquer these things and bring back some of the booty, I guess is what you call it. Like the leftovers, and I'm going to sacrifice them to God. Yeah, the spoils of war, and I'm going to sacrifice them to God because I think this is a good idea. Right. Like to me, the balance in this is I'm going to conquer and then I'm going to sacrifice to God because he thought that was big, like being obedient. And that was the number one priority. I have no idea why I'm going here, but all I kept hearing was how do you know, like, where does the word sacrifice in regards to balance come into place when you talk about like this umbrella? Like, how do you know what's good, what's bad, what's right, what's wrong when it comes to sacrificing, or maybe not maybe that's not a good word, but when you're balancing the home, the work, the family, all of those different aspects?
Yeah, so that's important. I think that's a good word because the Bible also says that obedience is better than sacrifice because we focus on like what we're giving up
Mm.
instead of like what the Lord told us to do. Like we're quick to be like, oh, I'm gonna give this up or I'm not gonna do this, and God is like, did you do what I told you to do though? Which is basically what Saul didn't do, right? He said kill everything, and so I was like, okay, Lord, I'm gonna bring you this stuff. But I think for me, it's about I can't sacrifice the things that only I can do. Right? There's some things that only I
Mm.
can do for my family. So there are the things that I sacrifice are the things that I can outsource. So cooking is
Mm.
sometimes a thing that I outsource. Like we order food because if I think about, okay, if I'm going to cook, I need to have prepared, well in advance. And our lives sometimes are not set up like that,
That's
or I
real.
forget, right? So outsourcing, that's important because I can't sacrifice time with my husband because that's only something I can do. I can't
Mm.
sacrifice things with my kids because those are things that only I can do. Those are things that they need from me. But there are things that I can sacrifice at work.
Yeah.
Like I can sacrifice, maybe I don't need to be on every single phone call. We work at a remote organization, so I'm not physically in an office. But
Mm-hmm.
maybe there are phone calls that I need to prepare my team to be on in my place and build their capacity. So while it's something that I'm not doing, and so I'm sacrificing my presence being there, but it's not a lack of quality because I
Yeah.
prepared somebody else to do it in my place. The same thing at church, right? Like I lead a team at church, I'm on the ministry team at church. And at one point, I was serving every single Sunday in my area, which is our digital ministry. And I'm like, this is not gonna work, right? Because that means that I could never sit down
Uh,
and worship with my husband. I was back there every week. So I needed to build a
mm.
team, to build capacity. So while my presence is what I sacrifice back there, I'm not sacrificing being able to sit down and worship with my husband because the little girl goes to children's church. But being able to sit down and worship with my husband because that's not something that somebody else can do. So where the other sacrifices come in
Yeah.
is like sometimes I miss out on things with my friends because my life is so busy
Mm.
that I need to make sure that I'm setting aside time for my umbrella. And then I fit in the other things under that. So maybe they are going to go do something that I really want to go do, but I haven't spent time with my husband or haven't had a date in months, right? Because of like how our lives are. So am I going on the
Mm.
date
Yeah.
or am I going on the girls trip? Am I
Yeah.
going to a church event or am I just going to hang out with my daughter at Chuck E. Cheese? Am I, going to watch a show with my husband or jump on a Zoom call to, being able to balance like what I really value in the season and
Yeah.
where I need to lean in because I'm not giving up on any of those things. So my
Yeah.
homegirls know like Chante's gonna miss this trip, but I'm still present in our friendships. Like that group text is what keeps us going for a
Yeah.
while until we can spend time together because I do need that time
Yeah.
too. Or with my sister, right? Like sometimes I'm not the one that can go visit her.
Mm.
She has to come visit me, right? Because the time that I take to go visit is
Mm.
time that I could be leveraging for something else. So come on, you come visit me because people know how my life
Mm.
is set up. So it's important that you also have
Yeah.
people around you who understand the systems that you have in place. Because otherwise, like people can feel some kind of way. But I'm very open and transparent about look, this is my life. And so let's take advantage of these times that we have together because I tell my husband all the time, there's no such thing as
Yeah.
free time. Not really, because that's time that you could be like doing something else. And the doing something else could be doing nothing, but it's still time, right? That you're sacrificing.
Right.
There's really no like free time. And so
Mm.
people are like, are you free? No, but I can make myself available because I'm never truly, truly free.
Free. Yeah. I'll be doing something with this time. I don't know
Yeah.
what it is, but
Yeah.
but that brings me to kind of a great um thought on, and this is something that I shared with you I want to say it's like a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about a personal experience with just a diagnosis that I received with ADHD and autism, and just helping me, and that kind of helped me walk out this personal thought about did I lack faith, or am I lacking reliance on God by, not really understanding or putting this diagnosis in place. And you were like, no, I think it helps you give a better understanding of how God fashioned me. Those were the words you used, fashioned me. You're so cute, like, in your language. That's how God fashioned you. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly how God fashioned me. Right. But it allowed me to hold these two things, these two thought processes in tension, in proportion with one another. And one of them was how I do need to be very strategic with my time, because with this diagnosis, at times I can lose perspective of time. I'm very time blind on certain things. And one of your suggestions was, why don't you think about time blocking? And we'll get into Sisterhood, we'll get into Deborah's Den and all those things, because I do want you to share about that. But I was in this cohort that you led with Jennifer, and we talked about the importance of building systems, and specifically that time blocking. That has been monumental in setting up my life.
Yeah.
setting up my work life, home life, wife life balance. But my question to you is, because I'm pulling all those things together, my question to you is, how do you do all of those things, right? Navigating the pitfalls of the words like sacrifice, abandon, postpone in relation to balance, when those things can sometimes have double meanings, right? Like we talked about the double meaning of sacrifice. Yeah, it may sound good, but it may not always be God, right? Like, how do you navigate that? Like words like abandon. Sometimes I can't go out on trips with, my girls, because date night is more important, or I have to postpone things like a night out with your daughter versus a Zoom meeting or a business meeting or even a leadership meeting in ministry, right? Because at that moment it may be what's most important.
Yeah, so that's where the synergy comes in, because people laugh all the time because people call my daughter like the church baby, because she is there with us all the time, because that's where, like, right, I'm bringing two things that are mutually important together. So, sometimes if we have a leadership meeting after church, I ask her, right, do you want to stay with us, or do you want to go with my mom, like go with Nana and go home? And sometimes she wants to stay and sometimes she doesn't. And I tell people, like, if we get involved in things, I'll be like, okay, well, my daughter probably is coming. And so if that's not okay, let me know. And if it's not okay, then I don't participate, because I'm not willing to make her feel like she's second to anything. So she gets a choice, right? Because both of her parents are in this leadership, on this leadership team. And so a lot of times she's there. She has her little tablet. She's eating the snacks. She participates in the conversation. She participates in the conversation sometimes, because, again, like, no time is free. So if she can't be a part of those like extra things, because me serving in church and my husband serving in church is technically an extra. And while the Lord has called us to certain things, us honoring our relationship with the Lord that's the requirement. That's what God requires of us. But the Lord, although we present ourselves as a living sacrifice, us serving on the leadership team at church is not a requirement. It's something that we have decided to give God our yes in. And at any point that encroaches on how she is being parented by us, that would be something we would have to discuss and potentially strategically abandon for a season. And me saying that, like, that sometimes that might have to get put to the side for a season doesn't mean forever, because she won't be a little child forever. And there may be a time where if we ever did have to take a step back, we could always return to that, or one of us, or something like that. But that's where the synergy comes in. She's going to those meetings a lot of times. Or if I'm on a Zoom call, I'll be like, my daughter's here. And me and I talked about that before. Like, if she comes home, she might bring her little self in here. And I set those things up
And
so
she's
people have
welcome.
that expectation that she's going to be around. When I returned back to ministry after I had her, she was there and crawled right on up, and I just picked her up. Like that's what my life looks like, and I think that was the greatest picture of trying to build synergy in my life. And I'm grateful for friends who really understand my portion, because in this particular season of my life, they are coming to me more than I am going to them. But it won't always be this way, and it hasn't always been this way. And so I'm grateful that we are able to navigate different seasons. And the same thing with my husband, right? Like there are lots of things that we do together. Sometimes he goes on a recruiting trip. I haven't done this as much recently, but he will go on a recruiting trip and I'll go, right? To build that capacity and to build that synergy, because there are some things that can, like I said, that cannot be abandoned and cannot be put to the side. But the things that can, like, I lean into that and I don't feel guilty about doing it. I used to. And that became overwhelming, trying to give 100% in every area at the same time automatically leaves you in the negative. Because sometimes, right, like I can give 20% here, and my 20% is enough. And because over here I need to give 70%, and over here I need to give 10%. But that's where that balance comes in, because it's not all things are equal at the same time. Like, no, that's not possible or sustainable.
Yeah. My subheading on the, like, kind of the next topic is called the balancing act, and it's about maintaining like a proper perspective. And literally what you just explained was one of the examples that I read in this book. Coincidentally, it's a book about Deborah, which we'll get into why that's funny to me and Chante. But it gave a skiing reference. Like, I don't know if you ever been skiing. I mean, we're Black. I don't know if a lot of Black people.
My cousin be going, and I'm like,
do you go skiing? You live in Texas too, so
no.
You lived in Nebraska though. They got snow
and corn.
Anyway,
no
it gave a it gave a skiing reference, and it talked about how the safest way to ski is to alternate weight back and forth between the left and the right foot, because shifting pressure from one to the other at times is how you stay upright. Like there's almost never a time in skiing where your weight is equally distributed between both left and right foot. And I was like, oh my gosh, that just put so many things into perspective, that everything is not going to cannot get 100% Mia all the time. In fact, almost everything in life is never going to get 100% Mia. Like the Lord, and then after that, everything else just kind of shuffles through. Like, and that was the beauty of the time blocking. It was like, okay, 12 to 2 work. Okay. 7 to 8, like 6 o'clock at night to 8 o'clock at night is Scooty. Like, that's my husband. You don't get any of that time unless we're together. Like he's like, oh, if he wants to have friends over, cool. We'll have people over, but I still need to be with him. Like, that's our time. And then after that is me. So I love that you said that, because when we talk about sometimes postponing or abandoning or sacrificing these things, we immediately see it as negatives, right? Or bad, or something that is just, oh, this can't be of God. So my question to you is, how do you choose God's will over what seems good?
Yeah, so I think it's defining two different things, right? Because the Lord will call me or command us to do things that stretch us. Like, one of my favorite scriptures is, it was good that I was afflicted so that I could learn your decrees. So it's the stretching. But if it's something that is going to break me, that's not the Lord, because he wouldn't do that, right? Like, that's not his way. That's not his character. And so the breaking looks different, right? It could be like mentally, right? Like, my mind cannot take anymore, or emotionally. But God will call me to do things that stretch me and push me outside of my comfort zone. So it's really being mindful and being self-aware to say, like, is this a pain from stretching, or is this a pain from breaking. And it's similar to how you think about like the body, right?
Yeah.
Like sometimes if you're working out and you realize, oh, I didn't stretch, and you might like something might get pulled because you didn't stretch. So like God will call
We
us,
know that.
to things if we don't prepare properly, and then the stretching, something gets pulled. But that's a very like easy injury to repair. But if it's like, oh, I'm looking around and I fell down the stairs and broke my leg, that's different because I'm carrying too many things in my hand. And the other way that I do is like ensuring I'm not taking on false responsibility, where I think all these things are riding on me, or all these outcomes are riding on my yes. Like, no, they're not. Like, honestly, most of what we get so worked up about, like, is somebody gonna die? Or is somebody like something detrimental going to happen if you are not there? Typically that answer is no, right? And it's literally, one of the things I heard at a leadership conference that was so like impactful for me is, even as it relates to how I prioritize time with my husband and my kids, is that sometimes we also have to like teach them that life is not going to always have someone available to you. And not that I'm like abandoning my kids or my husband, but if it's like you have gymnastics every single week, and one of those weeks, maybe I have a meeting, it's okay for me to go to that meeting, because you're going to have gymnastics next week to help teach specifically your kids that life is not always about someone like at your beck and call. And you do it when it's age appropriate, right? Like you can't tell your 2-year-old that. That's irresponsible and wrong. But as your children
I'm not
go,
feeding you dinner tonight.
right, you're not eating tonight, so you can learn what it means for mommy to sacrifice. No. But to be able to teach as your children get older that there are trade-offs, but it's a conversation that you have with your kids when they can understand. Like when they're little, they can't understand that. But as your children get older, you can start having those conversations. But again, you lean into seasons, right? So no, you can't do that when your baby is a newborn. You need to take care of your child. But as your child matures and they're going through grade school and they have extracurricular activities, they have things that they are interested in, you can start having conversations with them about things that you are interested in, and why that might require some of your time. Mia, you had said something earlier about like God, your husband, and yourself. That's the other part. Like you also have to be able, you can't keep giving to people and you never give yourself to yourself. So creating that capacity, because sometimes like, okay, well, you're going to go and practice. I'm going to go over here and read a book. Like you have gymnastics. Sometimes I'm going to take a phone call while I'm at gymnastics, because that's not stopping you and I'm still watching you. But being able to communicate that is really important. So if it's stretching me, I know that's the Lord. But if it's something that's about to break me, and also I want to give a caveat here, because sometimes you need to be broken of things that keep you from being who God says you are. But just being discerning, and I know that's like a buzzword as well, but that's why you need your umbrella. So you can be sensitive to the voice of God and really know, like, Lord, is this you pushing me? Or is this me pushing myself over the edge in a way that's not healthy?
Yeah. It's not a surprise that you have kids, a husband, a job, a whole, femininity or lifestyle of womanhood that we have to navigate. Like that's not a surprise to God. And so using the wisdom to navigate those things is important, because he knew that we were going to have all of these things, right? You said something earlier about hustle culture, though, and how easily those things can get intertwined. Because you're like, you can, essentially, I'm hearing like, we can do all the things. The problem is, should you do all the things? Right. Do you want to do all the things? And then where does God end and you begin, or vice versa, in all the things? Right? How do I not get my term, my thought, the world's view of balancing confused with essentially what it should be in my life? Because you're saying some things that I think are going to absolutely resonate with many of the women who are listening, but not every woman has the same callings or assignments or positionings as you, right? So practically, just overall, like generically, how do you know when you're doing this, how do you navigate God's will with your natural assignments and your positions of life, right? Overall, like on a generic scale, not just from Chante, but like if you had to just wisdom wise share it with a generic blank template. Can you do that? Maybe I'm asking something you can't even do, but
yeah. So
what do you think?
I think you really already said it, right? Like, I think there's this, like this lie we have been sold that we can have it all.
Mm,
Because it's this
mm,
piece that people are leaving out of, like, you can have it all, but not all at the same time. Because that's not realistic. Because how would that
yeah.
happen? So if you think about, like, okay, I want to be this boss, whatever, in whatever capacity, whether that's an
Mm,
entrepreneur or, working on someone else's
yeah.
payroll. But also at the same time, you're like, I also want to go and grow myself in education or develop myself in this way. That's going to be challenging to
Yeah.
navigate unless you have a really flexible schedule that allows for that. So it's really about what is most important for me to have in this season to be who God says that I am. Because this whole idea of, like,
Mm,
team no sleep is so annoying. First of all, your brain literally needs rest. So if you are not ever
I don't
resting,
know.
like, who came up with this? That's why I'm like, that whole hustle culture. And I'm not mad at, like, us wanting to
Yeah.
generate and create generational wealth for our families. I am 100% for that.
Yeah.
But also, like, in
I
a
know
way
you
that is healthy. So if your health is failing, and health is holistic for me. It's your spiritual, mental, emotional,
Yeah.
physical, and financial health. So if your health is failing, that's probably a good sign that that's not it, right? Because the Lord has
Yeah.
given us our lives to steward whatever your roles or hats that you wear. Like, it's literally like, hey, your life is really mine because you're not your own, but I'm going to trust you to
Right.
steward this or manage it well. Okay. And so your job is to manage it in a way
Mm,
that is honoring to me. So if you are abusing
yeah.
yourself in order to try to achieve something, whatever that is, right? Because culture has told us lots of things that you got to drink your water, be super fine, work out, be the all this, right? And we then start abusing ourselves in order to achieve these unrealistic
Yeah.
standards that we've set for ourselves, because the Lord will give us the desires of our heart if we honor him. Like, is what you're
Mm,
desiring really aligned to what God has called you
yeah.
to, or what you see somebody else with? Because, like, I'm like, okay, the girlies are out here doing
Ooh.
this and they're doing that and they're looking flawless. And I'm like, in my available time, I'm on the couch
And
watching
their
Netflix,
waists are
eating an ice
gone.
cream bar.
Where's their waist?
Right. What waste? What waste? Meanwhile, they
Yeah.
haven't told you they didn't have surgery to suck the
Where's
fat.
their waist at?
And I'm not mad at that. Suck it out,
Oh,
right? It could be something, if working out is not it. Like, hey, I'm not
if
mad
you
at
can
that.
pay for it.
Yeah, but in my available time, I'm watching
If
Netflix with
your
my
husband
husband
says
and
yes,
eating
mine won't say yes.
mine won't either, girl. He's like, no elective surgery. But, like, is that the standard that the Lord has
Go get
really
that.
set for
Go
you?
get to that gym.
Is that the standard the Lord has set for you? Because if it's not, then
Right.
cast it down. Cast it down and stop stressing yourself out trying to achieve something that really
Mm,
is not even meant for you to achieve. Because if the Lord has given us our lives to steward, it's because
yeah.
that's our ministry as well. So however we're stewarding that should
Yeah.
be drawing more people closer to him. End of story. Only what you do for Christ will last. That probably sum
Mm,
up this whole thing, right? So if that is not what you're
yeah.
achieving, if it's
Some of the
taking
whole.
you taking you away from the Lord, or if it's, again, if you don't have your umbrella in place, nothing under there matters at all. At all.
Yeah. 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 We can get sucked into that superwoman complex quite easily. And one of the things that I think gets us stuck there is guilt, like
Oh,
shame and guilt. Definitely looking at other people, comparing, but like that guilt. How have you had to deal with it? And if you have, mom guilt, wife guilt, employee guilt, leader guilt, like is that a thing for Chante, or is that just the rest of us in the world?
No, it has been. I had to get free from false responsibility, like big time, of just taking on the weight of the world on my shoulders. And if I couldn't solve somebody's problems or be whatever, then it was like, oh, So then so hustle culture is not just about like working to make money. It's really trying to be God. Ultimately, it's really trying to meet needs that you were not created to meet, and only the Lord was.
Wow.
So this is not me. Like if you see somebody hungry on the street and you be like, I'm gonna pray for you, even though you could just give them some food. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is that you really are owning things that do not belong to you. So then that's where the guilt comes in. For example, like you mentioned mom guilt, right? So if I can't go be at all these things for now forget I done already done all this other stuff for this child. But if I can't do this one thing, it's the end of the world and I have ruined her and she's going to hate me when she grows up. And this is the worst thing in the world. That one time.
Childhood ever.
Yeah, worst childhood ever, worst mother, all these things. And it was like, why do you think that you were created to meet every single need that she has? When that's never been God's design. Or the same thing for my husband. I was not meant to meet every single need that he has. So what about my thinking and my beliefs about God puts me in that position to be like, oh my God, I feel guilty for not being their God? Because really that's what we're saying, right? By not being able to do whatever this thing is, we're saying I'm not their God and I feel bad about that. And I don't want to be like, I'm telling you, I had to get delivered from this. And this is something that I consistently have to confess about the Lord, is that these people are his children first. And there is absolutely no way that he would expect me and my crazy self to meet every single need they have. That would be unfair to them as his children. If everything that they needed was riding on me, another flawed, broken person who needs to rely on the Lord to have all my needs met. So it really is like checking our ungodly beliefs. Like, what do I really believe about myself, about God, and about other people? If every time I can't do what I think they need me to do, guilt sets in. Like, we know, like, there's no condemnation for those in Christ Jesus. Like, we confess that all the time. But the reality is, like, am I living that, though? Am I living that there's no condemnation? Right. And even if I do disappoint them, because I'm going to disappoint them, what do I think is my responsibility in that, and what is God's responsibility, and what's their responsibility? So I'm not going to pretend that it's easy, but it's reminding ourselves about the truth about God. Like we are not God. We're not even close. Not even close.
Yeah. You talked about deliverance and like getting delivered from that and consistently, like constant, this is a new month. All right. False responsibility, gotta go, right? But and that's a practical, just in case like listeners don't know, that is a practical, like tangible item that you can walk yourself through through ministry, right? I'm a inner healing and deliverance ministry, so is Chante, our minister, so is Chante, and so we actively walk people through that process of being delivered or free, getting free from those things that will try to taunt or taint your life, right? Day to day. But more specifically for you, I know you shared with me personally, and I just know from knowing you, there are things that we share, one being the journey of infertility, but also just your life last year, overall, just the things that you dealt with. What are some things that you put in place that helped you navigate those complexities of life and maintain balance? Like, I drink more water, like I don't, what are those things that you added to the equation beyond, deliverance and getting free and going through some inner healing sessions that helped you in this area?
Yeah. So a few things. So one, really taking my physical health seriously. because while I was navigating a lot of those tough things, so the year before I had lost 15 pounds and didn't even realize it in 2022. I was like, oh, okay. Now it could have been, I still don't know like how that happened at all, nor did I even notice it until I went to the doctor. But last year
I gained
all that weight back and then some. And I'm like, I felt like I was gaining the weight back. And I'm like, you know what? I need something that is a stress reliever and something to really help me like jumpstart my day. Because my daughter started kindergarten last year and we were getting up earlier. And I was like, oh, Jesus, this is rough, waking up early. And so then I would lay back down after she would go to school. And so then my day would just be like, so then I'm jumping up to start work. And my day is dragging me through, basically. I was not in command of my day in any way, shape, or form. So I'm like squeezing in time with God and behind, and just I don't function well in that. Some people can like quickly pivot. Not me. I need a system, and then if I need to change the system, I can go with that. But I didn't have. I was struggling. I was struggling bad, and so what I decided is that, okay, after she goes to school, it's still before my work day starts. So I can get a workout in, a 30-minute workout. Sometimes I can add on 10 more minutes if I need to. And then I can spend time with the Lord, and then I can start my work day. And that was a game changer for me. I really was able to like kind of settle my thoughts in the mornings because she's out the door and on with her day, and really like think about, okay, how do I need to approach my day today from a mental standpoint and a spiritual standpoint. And the other thing is that because we've moved a lot, I haven't consistently had a therapist. It's been because we moved all the time. And so also making the decision to return back to regular therapy has been like exponentially, I feel like has accelerated my ability to balance and build synergy in my life, because now it's like this is a regular part of my life. I'm getting these tools on a regular basis for things that are happening. And some of what Mia is referring to, like my dad is going through a really hard time in his health and is deteriorating right now. And as a daughter, right, that's difficult to navigate and watch. And he lives next door to me. So that plus some other life can be really, really tough. And I realized like I needed to build my toolbox of my holistic health, right? Like my mental health, my spiritual health, my physical health, because a lack in those areas really creates lack in other areas for me in particular. Because when I start feeling bad from a physical standpoint, then it's hard for me to get out of the bed. So then I'm not showing up my best at work, which means I'm probably getting behind, which means I need to work longer hours, which means it's encroaching on my time that I'm supposed to have in the evenings. And then if I'm doing that, then I am off on Sunday. So I'm just all messed up, and I travel for work as well. So it's a domino effect for me. So then my umbrella starts getting some holes in it. So I think those are the practical things for me, like really taking care of my physical health. And it's a sacrifice of sleep, because Lord knows I would love to be asleep at 6 a.m, but the risk, the return on that investment is so much greater for me. And now like I'm waking up on my own before my alarm. And it's either do it in the morning when it's here, when I'm here by myself, or do it in the evening when that's supposed to be my time with my husband. So I make the sacrifice to do it in the morning, and I sacrifice my sleep, but it's worth it.
Yeah. I actually don't like that I wake up before the alarm now. It actually irritates me. I'm like, God darn it. I could have slept 10 more minutes. But my body literally says, no, get up, girl. We got things to do.
Yes.
It is time to go. So therapy, we talked about deliverance ministry, definitely prioritizing yourself with workouts and health, because maybe that's not everybody's focus, but this is something that's important. How will you actually mom and wife to the level that you want to, even work? I mean, even in the workplace, if your body is literally failing, right? Like, I just can't do these things. And this was you wrote me after I sent randomly, I sent Chante my thoughts, and then she has to decipher them and send me back a message. I'm like, what do you think about this? And one of the things you said to me in a text message was, after I told you about the diagnosis, you're like, what's odd to me is that people will not normalized counseling or going to therapy or getting a diagnosis and then getting the help that they need for the diagnosis, the same way as if your arm was broken or something hurt and you go to the doctor and you go to get healed or whole in that way. And it's so baffling that we don't put those in the same perspective. Like even with our culture itself, I would say in the Black and brown culture, it hasn't been notorious that counseling is like a first step. Hey, let's go to therapy and actually work on the things that are hurting and making us depressed and sad, right? Instead, we'll just ignore it and pretend like it doesn't exist. But there are some things that really happen. Like, and I talked about the journey of infertility. If you are comfortable with sharing, how that even has helped you move into a place of realizing I can't live this life without a level of balance.
Yeah, so I'm a 42-year-old mom of a 5-year-old. And I tell people that was not by choice. We weren't like, oh, let's wait till we get a little bit older and have a geriatric pregnancy on purpose. No. So I think.
Oh, I hate that word.
I know. But it's cool because it's like the geriatric mamas are killing it. Okay. Like, okay. Anyway.
Right. And we looking good. Like.
Yes. So I would say our journey to fertility. So our oldest daughter is not my birth daughter, but she's my baby. And then we weren't actively trying to get pregnant initially in our marriage. We kind of were like, oh, let's just enjoy being married. And like my husband was playing overseas and our oldest daughter was in the States. And so we weren't thinking about it because when we got married, I was 25 and he was 28. So we weren't necessarily like thinking about it. We weren't preventing it, but we weren't trying to either. So it's kind of like out of sight, out of mind.
Right.
And then I was getting pregnant. I got pregnant about a year after we got married and then had an ectopic pregnancy, which was a horrible experience and wasn't ever really like taught about what was going to happen next when you have an ectopic pregnancy once and puts you at a greater risk to have another one, which is exactly what happened several years later. And so after the second ectopic pregnancy, it really made it impossible to get pregnant naturally because they had to like disconnect my fallopian tubes from my uterus. And that's how babies travel right into your uterus is through your fallopian tubes. So at that point it was like, okay, well, what do we do now? Yeah. And we spent a lot of time like grieving, but also at some point the Lord was like, you guys need to enjoy each other because it won't always be this way. Yeah. And we did that, right? We traveled, he continued to play overseas and we like were living our best lives. Always feeling though, like something was missing, like that ache of wanting a child was always missing. But we really tried to think about like, do we have capacity in our lives for a child? Because I had never had a newborn before. And so we didn't know what that looked like. And so he was still playing for a while. And then eventually he retired. And I would say by the time he retired, it was pretty pressing on our minds of like, we really wanted to add to our family, but really seeking the Lord of what does that actually look like for us? Because we're back in the States full time, but coaching doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be living in the same place either. And I had a strong desire for our child to have stability in like going to school because we moved quite a bit when I was younger and I didn't really like what that felt like, but it was still like, are our lives set up in a way that we have space for a little person? And maybe we did, maybe we didn't, but we started taking active steps to find out like how could we add to our family, and lots of things came up, right? And I hadn't really started. I was in my career, but it wasn't like accelerating. I was in leadership, but it was like a different level of leadership than I am now. And then I started working for myself because I'm like, we're moving all over the place and those systems and balancing that. And I was traveling a lot more. I was traveling every single week. And we decided to pursue in vitro. And I was still ripping and running up and down the road, having to give myself injections and all kinds of things. But we had a system for ourselves because this was something that we really wanted in our lives and really felt released to do it by the Lord. And then when I did get pregnant, we kind of shut things down for a little while, right? Like I stopped traveling as much and just really trying to create that balance and what our lives would look like with a newborn. And then we had our daughter in 2018, and none of the things that we put in place made a difference. Because it was like, I thought in my mind, right? Because I'm a systems thinker. I'm like, okay, I'm going to set these systems up and just plug this little child in as if you can control them. And then that's not what
Right.
happened at all. And I was like, oh, so I'm going to go back to work when she's 3 months. Literally the day I went back to work, she decided to stop taking naps. So it was like, okay, girl, no, you're not. I took a break from ministry for almost a year. And so we were just, putting things in place to balance our lives as a family of four. And that took longer than I thought, but it was okay. And I think that really helped us do what we needed to do in that season for our family. And now I think back to like how faithful God is to his timing, because I think about like, what if we didn't do that until now? I probably would have had to say no to a promotion. We wouldn't be leading in church because we would have had a newborn, or if it would have happened, before and we had to move, which is, so I think you can plan and prepare and put systems in place, but just be ready for life to do something different. And I think that's what the journey to motherhood really taught me in general, because I used to be like, oh, if you want to get pregnant, you can just get pregnant. Right. And that's not actually how it works at all. So it just really taught us to enjoy the seasons that we're in. It taught us that leaning in, even though I didn't realize that's what it was teaching us, that we have to do now to try to balance our lives.
Wow. I love that. I love how I literally heard like the equilibrium in your story. How, yes, it's important to have systems, but overall, keeping that perspective or the ability to shift your perspective at any given moment is important too. So that, that skiing example plays a part. We could literally end it here, but I have some other questions, so that's not gonna. but that's what you're exempling, and even through the immense journey, like by no means, and anyone who is dealing with infertility or on their own journey right now will understand what I'm saying is, by no means is it an easy journey, right? Like it is filled with ups and downs, and it is literally a walk through how good are you going to be about shifting your perspective in any given moment, right? which is a great segue for me, because I want us to talk about, before we get too far away from it, because I wanted to bring it back earlier, but sorry, we had too many things that I wanted you to expand on. But you talked about making and keeping good friends. Well, you didn't talk about making them, but that you have good friends that kind of helped you in this process. And I really wanted to know, where is the place for sisterhood? Because specifically for me and infertility, and talking about like the balancing act of my life, sisterhood was imperative. If I did not have sisters to celebrate in their births, I would not know the joy that I needed in some situations. I definitely am getting emotional. That I needed to have in some areas where all I wanted to do was cry and sit in a corner. Like I needed to learn how to balance the joy with the pain. So for you, where does sisterhood play a role in this balancing act?
Oh man, okay. I don't have any tissue nearby, so it is what it is if it comes down. I would have not survived last year without my friends. Like last year would have definitely taken me out without them. Like helping to give me that perspective, and even I love my husband to death and he's amazing. My relationship with the Lord is amazing. But without people to really help remind me that just keep your head above water, not these unrealistic things to be doing or saying, but just wake up in the morning, right? Just how they can help support, or it's the I know that you are probably near drowning at this point, but I'm going to send this to you to encourage you or give you grace in this area to cover you, because although I wear all these hats and people probably see like, ooh, you know, she's super successful, like I have to remind myself of who I am in God daily, because I will easily talk myself out of who God says that I am. And so to have people who are really praying for you and not just like saying it, but for real, and to remind you even in moments when you're like, I don't even want to hear it, was vital for me. Like last year specifically, but even on the journey through infertility, like they believed more than I did at times. And so having true community, and true sisters that like it's, I don't even know how to describe it. I really don't. And I'm really close to my natural sister. And so for me, like the word friend or sister is not one that I use lightly. And loyalty is so important to me. It's a core value of my life. And if I have to question that, you probably don't have space really close to me. So that means that the people that are like that is priceless. Like I don't know how people do life without true friends. And it makes my heart sad that people don't get to experience what I've experienced. But I literally would not have survived the last year and plus without them. I really could. And we don't even see each other. Like we saw each other probably twice last year. So it's not even that. It's not even just in the togetherness physically, but like I know that our hearts are knit together because it's like things that they will share with me or say to me or send to me that is spot on. Like my little dog died last year, and Mia sent me this wind chime, and it just like those are things that are important because in a year like last year, that was hard. That was really, really hard for me. So yeah. Don't invite me on here no more.
Yo. I'm surprised I'm not weeping and crying because you know I'm the crier. But it hones in the point that friends, you know, sisters turn friends are pearls that you want to collect. And I think like what you were saying is you don't know how people do life without this. And I think it's truly because they don't recognize this, what's the word? The necessity. That's not even enough. Like it's not even honed. Like it's not drilling in. It is it's imperative. The imperative nature of having good friends in your life, because they do help balance the scales when it feels like you want to just sit in a corner and just cry and not do anything. You get that text like, hey, what you doing? And immediately, I don't know how everybody else responds, but immediately, like, I'm like, okay, Lord, you sent them on purpose so that I now have to respond because I feel like I'm accountable to, like, I have to say, hey, I don't feel good. I'm in a corner crying. And immediately, I mean, good friends, right? They're like, girl, what? Why? What's happening? Call me. What is going on? You know, like, and they send the message and I'm like, I didn't even want that right now. But, you know, good friends are like, I don't care if you want it, you need it. And this is what you're going to get. Right? Gosh. Oh, thanks for crying with me. I love when people cry with me, so I don't feel alone in this. Because I was definitely getting emotional. I was like, okay, I'm gonna hold it together. The other part of sisterhood that I think people forget, because there is a difference. I'm not telling everybody on Come Sis With Me to be everybody's friend. That's definitely not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that sisterhood is unique, and it has a unique role, especially in women. Like in the lives of women and your womanhood, that's important. And balance is one of the topics that sisterhood helps kind of balance the scales out. How? Because I think if you're always investing in someone else and teaching a skill, a talent, something with, you know, wise, a word of knowledge that you got, like you're investing in that. And one of the ways that you specifically have done that, Chante, is through ministry, right? Being a visionary leader who has, over the past 10 years, led other women in their leadership and ministry, including me, right? Setting some really good foundational points and groundwork for what that looks like in ministry and womanhood and life in general. But just most recently, creating Deborah's Den. And even though it is for, actually, I'll let you explain it. What was the purpose and how did it help you in this balancing of your life? Because I'm sure that was extreme cost to all the other things that you had to do. But why was Deborah's Den created? What is it? And how do you leverage it in your life? Or how do you
So
plan to leverage it in your life?
I'm always looking for biblical examples to follow. It's really important to me to make sure like how I live my life aligns with the word of God. I don't want it to be a good idea, to your point. I want it to be a God idea. And several years ago, I guess almost 10 years ago, probably at this point, someone mentioned to me, they had a word for me and was like, have you ever studied Deborah in the Bible? You really have an anointing like Deborah. And I was like, who is that? I had not heard of Deborah before because y'all know they be robbing us of the teachings on the women in the Bible, but I won't go there. I was like, who is that? And so I wanted to do a deep dive about this woman who this person thought I had an anointing similar to. And I was so energized by reading about Deborah. Like it was like, oh my goodness. And it's not a lot in the Bible about Deborah, but I was so energized about reading about her because at that particular season of my life, like I heavily identify with Hannah because of the journey to fertility. And if you don't know Hannah, right, like she's a woman in the Bible that had to just plead with God to open her womb. And there were lots of other women in the Bible who battled infertility, but Hannah just really resonated with me. And so that's like who I was so focused on as like a woman in the Bible, of like her faith and her journey with the Lord. And then Deborah came along and I was like, oh, okay. Deborah is open. Yes, Deborah is a leader. She is a wife. And because the Bible did not mention that she was not a mother, I would assume, and that's me taking liberties, that she was a mother as well. And she was a military strategist as well. So she was a boss. So she was balancing a lot of different roles in her life. And so that has really stuck with me over the last 10 years of like, what would Jesus do? But also what would Deborah do? Like how would Deborah approach this and what strategy would she bring to this? And so as I walked in my own founded, I really had a difficult time finding other women that were balancing several of those same things at the same time. Like I would meet a woman that maybe she had been a wife for decades and her children were older and maybe she was, retired, or maybe she was at the peak of her career, but I couldn't really find women who had been in similar seasons as me. And so I really desired to find that only for community's sake, people to kind of trade strategies with and what systems are you using for this and that. And I could never really find a woman who had all those same things going on. And I've always kind of approached my life and my relationship with the Lord of like, if this is something that I need, it's probably something that somebody else needs. And when I was promoted into the C-suite in 2022, I had been in leadership in my professional career for years, but it's different in the C-suite. Like it really is different, leading in that capacity. And I am the youngest chief on our team. I was the only diverse team member on our team as well. And that comes with its own fair share of things to navigate, plus leading at church and co-leading in my home. And so I really wanted to provide an environment for other women leaders who were navigating different aspects of their leadership journey in different ways, whether they were entrepreneurs or ministers or pastors or mothers or wives, because whether you have children or not, like you are still a leader in your home, or even if you're single, or people that have
Yeah.
leadership roles professionally, or just whatever the case may be, to really provide a place for women to be sharpened in their leadership in a place of
Yeah.
safety. Because sometimes when you are a leader
Yeah.
or the leader, you can be really lonely, and it's really tough to be vulnerable and share what you don't
Mm.
know. So this was a spot to be able to share
Yeah.
like what you don't know and get better and get sharper and like create a community for yourself, as a leader or the
Yeah.
leader in your like sphere of influence. And it was really developed from my own experiences of what I really needed to be successful in each of those roles. It's something that the women could use no matter what season they were in. So like while you could apply this in this season, well maybe you could apply this in a different season. And it was
Right.
really a labor of love, because to just
Mm.
see those women come together in that way and realize like they're not by themselves, and there was a place for them to be vulnerable and to
Yeah.
grow and to not have to be in charge, was so like,
Yeah.
it just touched my heart so much. And to your point, like I know I can only do it once a year because of the different things that I balance, but it was beautiful. It was really
Yeah.
beautiful to see.
Yeah. I firsthand account, it definitely was beautiful. And even though many of the things I already knew, because one, I mean, I spent a lot of time with you. So I think as you learn them, you are very good at investing in someone else by sharing the wisdom. You're not a gatekeeper whatsoever. Sometimes I wish that you were in previous seasons. I was like, I'm so tired of learning things, but it really wasn't. But Deborah's Den was a great, like, hey, you know these things, girl. What's wrong with you? Get back up. Get back on your
Mm-hmm.
game. Right. Remember who you are. Right. I kept hearing in my head after many of the sessions, show them who you are. Like from from Black Panther.
Yeah,
And I was like,
yeah,
that's me. I gotta show who I am. That's definitely me. Um,
yeah,
but I think what people discount sometimes is that that's because you have such a strong um, affinity or a belief in the system of sisterhood and what that provides, right? And that women need safe places to be who they naturally are, who they're naturally created to be, and they need places to learn and grow and mature, and they need to do it with other women who can show them, hey, this is cool. We can do this
yeah.
together. You're not alone in this fight. Um, which is why I asked you on, and I'm so glad that you said yes. I'm always thankful for your yes. Um, but I don't want to. I don't want to like. We could literally have 5 sessions on this, but I love and value your time as a wife and a mother and uh, a business executive, and so I don't want to, tarry too much longer. But what are some closing thoughts or words of encouragement or whatever is just on your mind that you would want to share with the listeners?
Yeah, I think so many things. I think the primary thing for women to remember is like God has graced you with the capacity for what's yours at this time. Because
Mm-hmm.
we sometimes struggle with like, I remember I remember when we were transitioning, I was transitioning the ministry that I used to lead um out, like closing, kind of shutting things down. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to have all this free time or available time. And someone shared a prophetic word with me, and they're like, the Lord is about to charge you with this. And I was like, what? Why? What is the
Uh-uh.
reason? And Lord, like, I want to rest, and all these things that I had in mind. And I did. I've had a season of rest. It doesn't, like, rest can be active rest at all. It doesn't mean doing nothing. But I really had to lean into
Right.
like, Lord, if this is what you have for me now, you are going to give me the grace for that. Like your
Mm.
mercies are new every single day.
Mm.
And if I don't have the grace for it, I don't want to do it. Because sometimes I don't be wanting to do stuff. I'm gonna do it anyway
Yeah.
because I'm gonna be obedient, but I don't be wanting to. But that the Lord will give me
Yeah.
the grace for it. And that's a lot of times how I do discern what I'm supposed to be leaning into when the grace isn't there.
Mm.
And grace is that supernatural ability to accomplish something well for the glory of God. And I know when I'm forcing it, I can feel
Yeah.
it. So I would say that, like, as a woman,
Mm.
the Lord will give you grace to increase your capacity for what is for you in
Yeah.
the time that it's there, including friendships and sisterhood. And sometimes that's where the grace actually comes from. It's from the women who hold you up and support
Yeah.
you and give you that supernatural ability that you don't have in your own strength. So that would be it. Lean into your
Yeah.
grace and give yourself a pat on the
Mm.
back too. Like, for balancing those things, I have to remember to
Yeah.
celebrate. Like, girl, you getting this done and you getting it done good.
Mm.
And that's a great thing to do.
You're doing a good job.
Yes.
Now that song comes, you're doing a good job, girl. You're doing a good
Thank
job.
you.
We didn't even talk about this, but we'll, again, like I said, culture of celebration. That's just something that we could move into. But I love that close. And so it has encouraged me to prophetically speak over you and the listeners too about this balance. And this is where we'll close. My sisters, Chante, anybody listening, you are beautifully balanced. You walk in God's grace and his ability to navigate the responsibilities of your life. You don't discount them or make excuses for them, but you accept them with a charge and a blessing that every area that was given to you was meant for you in this life.
Mm.
You are a blessing to your family. You are a blessing to your church. You're a blessing to your community, to your workplace, to your friends, and to the sisterhood collectively. May you continue to walk in that fulfilled, blessed place with balance and grace and bloom every place that God plants you. I thank
Mm.
you so much, Chante, for coming on this podcast, this session with me, sharing your wisdom, sharing all of the things that you have had to go through in life. There's a cost to it, but you are showing people that it is necessary and it's possible to walk in the extremely hard things, but also have a well balanced joy and celebration in your life as a result of it. So, thank you so much. I appreciate you. That's it.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed this episode of Come Sis with Me, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your friends. Tune in next time as we continue to explore the extraordinary power of women in the bond of sisterhood. Until then, you got this, sis.